Welcome to all you lovely people out there who are trying to make the world a better place. Welcome to the Dead Man Walking Podcast. I am your host, repeatedly dead Fred, author of the soon to be released memoir, The Summer I Died 20 Times, which is what happened to me. Thus, that's why I have the name Repeatedly Dead Fred. Kind of makes sense, right? Today, I am thrilled to have Asha with me. Asha is coming to us from Bali, and he has quite the tale. So I think I'm going to let him do most of the talking. And Asha, take it away. Thrilled to have you here.
Yeah, thanks. So my name is Asha, and I'm very happy to be here. Um, I grew up in Brussels, in Belgium, and during my adolescence, I developed addiction for many drugs like cocaine, MDMA, weed, tobacco, alcohol, and I went on a huge spree of consuming drugs and separating myself from society for more than a decade. And I really felt into the trap of feeling that I was a junkie and that was my life and there was no way out. Until one day I met a psychiatrist during a party and I was hitting on her, and she at one point asked me, "What kind of medication are you taking?" And I was kind of shocked. I was like, medication? I'm like, I'm sniffing cocaine. Like I'm having like other,
Mhm.
like whatever drugs you want, I'm just having fun. And she told me like, you clearly have ADHD. Like you should be treated rather than taking drugs. And that just exploded in my brain. And I was like, oh wow. So that figure of authority came to tell me that I wasn't broken, but I had something different than most of the people, and
Mhm.
there was way to get out of it. But then when I started doing research, they and seeking professional help, they offered me to take prescription drugs and replace street drugs for prescription drugs, which in my mind was like a no go. Like, come on, I'm addicted to these drugs, and you're offering me to give me other drugs that I've already consumed during parties, because things like Adderall, Ritalin are drugs that people consume either for like students, they love taking these kind of drugs because it gives them
Mhm.
focus, but people who party also sometimes take these drugs because it's full of amphetamines. And that day I was like, no, this is not possible for me. I'm not gonna make that switch. It's just like destroying myself the same way. So I went on a journey of finding ways on how I could rewire my brain to be able to
Mhm.
change my life without the use of drugs. And that was a huge journey, and that's the reason why I really want to share my story with as much people as I can, because when I was in that state, I felt there was no way out, and drugs would be the
Mhm.
only way for me to be functional in society. And I know a lot of people who still are in that cycle, like taking these pills every day and believing that the only way for them to having a normal day is by consuming 3 to 5 different pills. While it's just about rewiring your brain, because ADHD or whatever like mental disorder someone might be suffering from, it's the brain not being wired the same way. It's a stress response that we are constantly evoking in our lives. And once you learn how to manage stress and how to um, use your focus in more positive ways, life can be changed, and things that were not accessible to most of the people just become natural.
So, were you a functional addict? Like, were you able to hold a job and things like how would you
Well,
fund your drugs?
how I was funding my drugs. So my main occupation was to sell drugs. So that was
Okay,
not functional. That was
that's
not
pretty
functional as
functional.
most of it is pretty functional, but it's not functional as most of the people that have like day jobs.
Hmm.
And then on the side, I had a lot of different like side activities. I was doing a lot of sport and I was organizing sport events. I also had a workshop where I was mounting bicycles because I was very passionate about
Okay.
cycling. Cycling
Mhm.
was one of the biggest sport I used to practice on a daily basis. And but besides that, yeah, I wasn't functioning well like most of the people, but I was like relying on myself. But then
Mhm.
the consumption of the daily consumption of drugs is having an effect on your mental, on your ability to
Sure.
do things. You know, like I felt trapped because I couldn't travel. If I had to travel somewhere, it would be in a place where I would knew people who would consume the same amount of drugs as me, and they would be able to provide me these drugs upon arrival, because I used to smoke at least 1 or 2 grams of marijuana, taking at least half a gram of cocaine every day. And
Mhm.
that's a heavy consumption for an average person. So getting outside of my bubble would be very hard, because drugs and the access of drugs was really the thing that kept me into some circles. And when I've been able to let go of drugs, I've opened myself to new possibilities. Because
Mhm.
when you can function only with a certain setting, the setting is blocking you in your life.
Mhm. So forgive me on my lack of knowledge of drugs, but I should know this. Don't Doesn't marijuana and cocaine work sort of opposite? Like, doesn't marijuana mellow you out and cocaine bring you up, or is that why you take both of them to sort of get you in the middle?
It's a bit to get yourself in the middle somehow. So marijuana mellows you up and it just like relaxes your muscles, and cocaine gives you more focus and confidence. To
Okay.
me personally, I like the word dependence rather than the word addiction, because
Mm-hmm.
dependence explain why you're taking a drug. You take a drug because it gives you something. You depend on the drug for the effects it's giving you. Cocaine is very known to give confidence to people. It's a drug that
Mm-hmm.
gives you this desire of action. It increases your levels of dopamine, and dopamine is the chemicals that gets in your brain, gives you the motivation to do things. So generally when you take cocaine, you have more motivation to and more confidence to do things. And I was lacking confidence in my life to levels that like were like undescribable. So
Mm-hmm.
cocaine was the drug I was using to outsource my confidence, and
Mm-hmm.
weed was the drugs that I was using to relax. Like alcohol is known to be a social binder. People drink alcohol and they feel more social. So people are
Mm-hmm.
outsourcing their social ability on the alcohol. They become dependent on alcohol to loosen up.
Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
so this is sort of you might not be able to answer this, but um, what do you think cause you to have such a lack of confidence? Like, do you think that's a genetic thing, or is it something that ran in your family, or
Um,
something happened?
so I think it's multiple factors together.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest factor is that I grew up with ADHD without knowing it. When I was at
Mm-hmm.
school, I had this attention deficit, which was creating a huge disadvantage in me when I had
Sure.
to listen to the teacher, when I had to study. So that created in me the belief that I was not fit in society, that I was not able to function, and that created a lot of lack of confidence, making me believe that I'm not able to do things. And confidence comes
Mm-hmm.
with trust. It comes when you succeed things and you repeatedly succeed things. When you succeed something once, it might be chance, but when you repeatedly succeed something, you get confident about doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And me was the opposite. I was in a setting where we measure success by your ability to be focused at school and to listen to the teacher, to be sitting still for hours. But with this, with that kind of deficit, you want to move all the time. You don't want you cannot say that you cannot fit inside of a classroom,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where part of my lack of confidence started creating itself. And on the other hand, I had a lot of work outside of school to catch up with that.
Hmm.
which made me feel that I'm not good enough, because other kids would be playing, I would be learning more to just like get back there. So that created a layer of lack of confidence. And then there is probably other other layers that I have not uncovered yet, but I don't
Hmm.
need to understand everything. I've understand most of it, and that gives me a background. But now what I really work on is to finding tools to grow out of it more.
Okay, so um, I know I went through my most of my life with learning disabilities that I didn't know I had, and my
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
parents didn't recognize that, and the school system certainly wasn't looking for it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I guess I was in my mid 30s when we found this out, and I told my parents, and they were mortified, like that,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
that all this had been going on, and they had no clue that I needed help and stuff like that. And I certainly don't blame my parents. They
Mm-hmm.
were just doing what they could with what they had. Did you have
Yeah.
any reaction from your family when they found out that you had all these underlying issues and it was just going on
Yeah.
right under their noses?
Yeah. It was a huge shock for them when I sent them the diagnosis and they read
Hmm.
it. And it was literally each stage of my life was described by this thing. And it was like literally like, like as if the doctors, they were there every day. I mean, at each stage of my life, they could predict how my life would have been.
Hmm.
And it was a huge turnaround, because I had like this relationship with my family that was a bit broken because
Sure.
of my consumption of drugs, like um and I guess for my family it was pretty hard also to see myself destroy myself like that.
Hmm.
And yeah, there was a huge shift in that.
And the
Yeah, really.
relationship is much better now?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Good. So what happened to the psychiatrist in this story? Do you stay in touch with her? Did you hit on her? Did you go on a date?
No, not at all. Well, she opened my eyes, and but then uh, the path that they were offering me didn't match with me. Like taking
Hmm.
medication and going through this kind of therapy didn't match with me. So I decided to do my own research, and I
Hmm.
went more onto meditation, yoga, and more of the activities that labelize mindful.
Hmm.
And right now, like I use a lot of meditation, I do a lot of sport, and a lot of activities that really get me in tune with myself and in tune with my emotions. And I work more with my emotion than with psychology. um,
Hmm.
the brain has this ability to find excuses on demand. If I'm asking you why do you feel that way, you can just like find out so many excuses. It's so very
Hmm.
easy for the brain to find out excuses. And I find it more efficient to work with feelings and sensation that are in my body, rather than trying to understand things with the mind. I did that for a long time, but I realized it's super slow process. It is a
Hmm.
process that is needed, because the mind is the gatekeeper of your being. Like we
Hmm.
have emotions, we have a physical body with sensation, and then we have the critical mind that is thinking and that is analyzing things. And it's the same process when you want to make a sale. If you want to sell something to someone, you need first to convince the mind and then touch the emotions,
Hmm.
because people know that with emotions we can go through very fast, but we can also lose ourselves. So you need to work with the mind and the emotions, but the emotions are the one who redirect you. If you have fear inside of you, fear will control your life. But then you need to soften the mind in order to be accessing that fear. And that's either a therapist or yourself. If you want to change something in your life, you need first to uh, look at it with a new perspective, that will
Hmm.
change the way the mind is operating, and then you will be able to transform the emotions inside of you.
Yeah, I think for most people, it's generally pretty tough to be your own therapist. Some people
Mm-hmm.
are able to do that, but the majority don't seem to have the ability to reflect on things and keep themselves on a path. I'm not saying it can't be done, just that it makes it a lot harder for most people. So,
I mean,
um,
so for me, there's a lot of tools that someone can use by themselves to identify symptoms and to observe. And then when you have identified the problems you have, having the support of a therapist or any kind of, it
mhm,
can be even a friend, because there is always a blind spot that we cannot see. And
sure.
it's by touching the blind spot that usually everything unwraps. And or just, even if you know all the story, but just saying it's to someone, it creates that that opening in your mind, and that opening in your emotional body, that is allowing the unfolding of that. I think that awareness, self-awareness, is very important. I
Mhm,
I often see that people say don't compare yourself with others, and I agree. Don't do that too much, but observe yourself and observe others in the same situation. Ask yourself, oh, could I do better? Because I see these people are reacting. I mean, I'm gonna give the simple of example of someone who has a phobia of dogs because he was bitten when I was a kid. If you see
mhm,
someone petting dogs and being very comfortable with dogs while you're being afraid of dogs, that's a healthy comparison of like, oh, this person has no problem with dogs. I have a problem with dogs. So there, with your own awareness, you can spot a problem and you can ask yourself, okay, where is the root of that problem? And with a therapist, with someone that is supporting you, you will be able to go faster and see that blind spot that's gonna help you unfold. And but like the difficulty is really to accept the pain that we have inside. When
mhm,
it's always easier to help someone else solve their problem than solve your own. And that's why
mhm,
having someone in the process, someone that's supporting you, that's a way to accelerate any kind of change. It's not necessary, but it will make it so much easier and so much faster. And it doesn't have to be a professional, it doesn't have to be someone that you're paying for. It can be a family member, it can be a friend, as long as they have a detachment from the situation, and as long as they have the honesty to tell you, hey, this is the problem, because sometimes friends don't want to hurt you, so they don't want to point out the thing that is hurtful. But if the person
mhm.
has that clarity and that honesty to say, hey, I see that you're hurting yourself by doing this, and you might be doing it in a different way.
Mhm. So I know you want to help people um, get out of their situations or change their life
Yeah.
situations. So do
Hmm.
you have a practice that you've developed? And should people be,
Yeah.
looking you up online, or do you have a website, or how do people get a hold of you, and what happens after that?
So the best way to contact me is through Instagram right now. I have an
Hmm.
account that is called the best of Asha. And so I have different programs for different needs, but everybody has their own days and own schedule. So if someone has something they want to change, they can just reach out to me, and I, in a few minutes, with a few questions, I have a questionnaire I can send to anyone, and by
Hmm.
answering that question, I can give them some advice without any problem on how they can improve their day. I really
Hmm.
like this principle of, if you can improve 1% of your life every day, at the after like 100 days, you've already changed your life 100%, which is 3 months. In 3 months, you can
Hmm.
totally change your life. If you do that every day for 1 year, it's 300% of change in 1 year, which means that you're like way further than what you would be if you don't do anything. And 1% a day, it's not much. It means like, you wake up, if the first thing you do is take your phone and start watching social media, let's say, okay, well, I want to change 1%, I'm gonna delay the use of my phone of like 20 minutes in the morning, or I'm gonna wake up, or in the evening, I'm gonna prepare my clothes for the morning. So next day, I'm getting faster to my work day. So like one little thing that you can do every day, and then it adds up, and your life becomes so much better. And giving one advice like that, I could do to everybody every day. It's not a problem. So yeah.
Sure. So do you have one particular branch of, I'll use the word therapy. I don't know if it's the right word,
Yeah.
that you prefer to use or you find helps people the most?
For me, there's three steps to therapy. First step is awareness, and awareness comes by self-observation. Self-observation is coming either through journaling or to meditation. If regularly a person is going to meditate or do some journaling, they will observe things happening in their life. They will see patterns, and when that is done, then there is a second part, which is the emotional part, is understanding what is the emotion that is creating that pattern. So usually is a negative pattern comes with anxiety or comes with a fear, um, and is understanding, or for example, I'm late all the time, or why am I late, or because I'm anxious, so I'm not looking at the time, and then you understand you're anxious. And I think then the third part is to really extract these emotions. And extraction of emotion can go through different ways, and usually is expression. So we can do it by talking about the problem. It can be done by art, it can be done by sport, by dance, whatever physical activity, because emotions are stored in the body, and whatever you feel, whatever you sense, comes from your body. Like when you're sick, when you don't feel good, it's your body. When you feel angry, it's in your body that it comes, and then your mind is interpreting. Like you feel hot, you feel like this desire of moving, and it's like, oh, I'm angry. If you feel in love, you just like feel light, and like you have the butterfly, and it's inside of your body happening. So working with the body is important to be able to change your life. Just to repeat, so for me, there's three steps. First is the awareness that comes by observing your life, either through journaling to meditation. Then the second step is to gain awareness of what emotion is causing that pattern, and then to extract it in any way, whether it will be through an expression of art, or through talking with someone, or through movement. And then
Yeah,
when you yeah,
sorry, please finish.
when you integrate that in your life, you start having evolution on a weekly basis, even on a daily basis.
So I might be confusing your bio with somebody else who wants to be on the show. Are you also a hypnotherapist?
Yeah, I do hypnosis. Yeah.
Okay. So so I'm not going crazy. I did remember
No.
correctly. So I don't know about in Europe, but I think in North America, most people's exposure to hypnosis are more the entertainer types that
Yeah.
you'd see in a, they've got an audience and they'll make somebody dance like a chicken, or do all these things. But hypnosis as a therapy is quite different. Are you able to
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So I will say the entertainment part, I don't know anything about it. I've never been I mean, I've seen videos, I thought it was pretty fun, but I've never like really looked into it. What I do is I put people in a state of sleep where they have access to most of their memory. We store memory in the form of emotion in the amygdala. There is a part of the brain that is around the front and in the center, where we store all emotions. So whenever we're having an experience, we're gonna catch elements through our senses, and then we're gonna create an imprint of how it makes us feel. So we create a pattern of actions. For example, if you drink coffee every day and you make your coffee yourself, there is a pattern of actions before the coffee is made and you drink it. And so you're gonna grind the coffee beans, and you're gonna hear the sound of that, and that is already telling your body that you're gonna feel that smell of the hot coffee. Your body is expecting that, and the emotions are coming, and that is your memory, how it's implanted in your brain. And some elements create negative emotions. And for example, you go in a car crash. You were a kid, maybe you were like 5-year-olds, and there was a car crash, and you will remember the sound of the squishing tire. You will hear different, like the sensation of the brakes going fast and things like that. And so your body is remembering all of these elements. And when one of these elements is happening in your life afterwards, it's going to be triggering a trauma response. So when you were in the accident, you might have the body that is tensing, or you might be scared. And so it might happen that every time you hear someone braking at the red light or whatever, your body might go back in the same situation of saying, oh, this danger is coming back. So if I remember well, the brain records 10 minutes before a traumatic event. So everything that happened before, it is remembered as signs of danger. And that's a very, very good survival skill. But then it can be also blocking you in your life. If you were a kid and your teacher screamed at you very violently, you might be scared of people screaming, which as an adult has no reason to be lived. And so when we go into hypnosis, I take the person in a dream state, and they're remembering what happened. And then with communication, because the person is sleeping but still kind of awake, the body is sleeping but the mind is still awake. And so I have communication with the person. I'm asking them what is happening in this, and the person is like, oh, I'm in the classroom right now and my teacher is screaming at me. And so I'm like, can you imagine yourself answering in a different way? So by doing that, we are rewiring the brain. We're creating a new pathway in the brain saying, hey, I have power on that situation. I changed the memory of the past. The past is still the same, but the memory, the emotion that is related to that past is transformed. And it's crazy because the next days after a session, the patient, the client is noticing tremendous change in their behaviors, things that the day before they were scared to do, they start doing them with confidence. And that is when I discovered that, I just went full on into it, because it can be also done by yourself. You can go on YouTube and type hypnosis, and then you write the problem behind, like hypnosis self-confidence on YouTube, and you will find 10, 20 videos that will guide you through hypnosis. And so there are no risk of someone trying to empty your bank account, because you can listen to the audio on YouTube before doing it and be sure that the person is really trustworthy. And by doing that, you can learn how to do hypnosis by yourself, and then manage yourself inside of your own dreams.
Very interesting. Although as a business owner, I don't know that would be part of my business model, is to teach people how to hypnotize themselves when that's the service
Actually,
I'm trying to sell.
It is a program I have. I have a program right now that I'm selling, where I'm teaching people in 90 days to use their sleep time as a time for hypnosis.
Hmm. Okay, that sounds good. It's very interesting. I haven't met
Yeah,
anybody who's seeing a therapist that does that, but I think
yeah,
living in a major city in Canada or the U.S. is different than living in a major city in Europe or in Asia. So we just have
yeah,
different
yeah,
medical practices. So
yeah,
we're coming
clearly.
close to the end of time, and I found this whole story of yours uh, quite fascinating. So I told you before I have the Dead Man Walking wheel of questions.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Are you ready to pick a number
I
between 1 to
am,
36?
I am. Well, I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm gonna say, I'm gonna take 32.
Okay. So I used to play rugby, and one
Mm-hmm.
of my teammates had a shirt that he called the Get Her Done shirt. And whenever he had a big task, whether he was going to work or it was one of our championship games or something, he would wear this ratty old shirt underneath. Even if he was in a business suit, he would wear this.
Uh-huh.
Do you
Yeah.
um, do you have something? It might doesn't have to be a shirt, but do you have something when you have to go into really serious mode that you sort of attach to yourself that nobody else will even know it's there, but you find it
Ah,
helps?
not really. I mean, I have my bracelets that I really like. Um,
Hmm.
and it's a friend of mine who have business making these bracelets, and I
Hmm.
created these models myself. So I like them because they give me a sense of confidence about my creativity, and they linked me to my friends. So these
Hmm.
I wear them almost every day, but they also give me that sense of confidence and safety.
Yeah, so it's a bit of an anchor, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah. Personally, I'm not a therapist of any sort, and that this whole interview, we're not offering medical or legal advice. So, um, but
mm-hmm.
uh, I would strongly suggest that everybody needs some anchors in their life, however you manifest that,
Yeah,
and as part of your self reflection and however you self reflect, it would be a good idea to find yourself an anchor to help you move your life
yeah,
forward.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
Asha, I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I
Me
thank you
too.
so much for coming on. And it's very brave, as you said, there's a lot of shame with the type of lifestyle you had to live before, and
Mhm.
I'm glad you're working through that, and you're taking what's happening to you and trying to help other people and prevent other people from having to go through it themselves. So, good
Yeah,
man, you're a good man.
thank you.
Well, thank you to everybody who's tuned in for the Dead Man Walking podcast. I humbly ask you to like, subscribe, share, go to Asha's Instagram. And what's your Instagram again, please?
Is the best of Asha.
The best of Asha. And lots of good information there. And have a lovely day. We'll see you next episode. Thanks so much. Bye bye.
Bye.